It's January 30th, 1945, and a 10-year-old boy named Horst White is fleeing the war. Germany is losing, and the Russians are coming for revenge. Everyone in East Prussia, northern Germany, is ordered to evacuate. Their only hope is to board the Wilhelm Gustloff, a ship that will take them to the safer city of Kiel. Before leaving with his mother, Horst grabs a Swiss Army knife, just in case. Little did they know, just hours later, they find themselves in the midst of the largest loss of life in a single ship sinking in history. Horst and his mother made it on board the ship. The weather was bitterly cold, and the threat of a Soviet attack loomed at any moment. Horst and his mother even went to sleep wearing life jackets as they sailed along the Baltic Sea. Unbeknownst to them, a Soviet submarine was slowly creeping upon them from beneath the icy water. A deafening loud bang was suddenly heard on the boat they had been hit. In a later interview with BBC Witness, Horst White recalled the events. "My mom woke me up, and then the next thing I know, within seconds, another bang, and then another bang. We ran out of the cabin, and I managed to climb up the stairs. My mom almost made it to the top, but she fell all the way down. I was screaming my head off, Mom. But eventually, she was able to grab the railing and pull herself up." Thankfully, White and his mother made it up to the lifeboats. The only problem was that there weren't enough for everyone. There were 22 lifeboats minus 11 on each side, but when the torpedoes hit, the ship immediately tilted 15 degrees to the port side. No lifeboat got loose on the starboard side, and on the port side, only about 6 or 7 could be freed. The rest were frozen. In total, they had maybe 7 lifeboats, each capable of holding about 70 people. Horst and his mother were among the lucky few who got into a lifeboat. As it was being lowered, people started jumping in. Some had to be hit over the head, with a paddle to stop them from climbing aboard. It was gruesome, Horst later recalled. "Those are things you can't get out of your head." Suddenly there was more panic. The ship was sinking, but the ropes securing the lifeboat were frozen, threatening to drag it down with the ship. People frantically searched for someone with a knife. Just when they thought their luck had completely run out, Horst realized he still had his Swiss Army knife. Despite being just a 10-year-old boy, he saved 70 people, including himself and his mother, by cutting the lifeboat free. They watched in horror as the ocean liner disappeared into the Baltic Sea. Estimates say between 7,000 and 9,000 people died that night. To put it into context, 1,500 people died on the Titanic. The sinking of the Wilhelm Gustloff was by far the greatest maritime disaster of all time. So why do we know so little about this tragedy? To answer this, we must first look at the Gustloff's troubled history. Constructed in 1933, it was initially meant to be named after Adolf Hitler, who had just been appointed Chancellor of Germany and was incredibly popular. However, rather than naming the boat after himself, Hitler decided to name it after Wilhelm Gustloff, the leader of the Swiss branch of the Nazi Party, who was assassinated by a Jewish student. Naming the boat after Gustloff helped promote Nazi propaganda, making a martyr of the slain leader and further vilifying Jewish people. The Gustloff was built as part of the German government's Kraft durch Freude, Strength Through Joy program, serving as an ocean cruise liner for German workers to relax and enjoy some leisure time. Like everything else from that period, it was designed to showcase German technological superiority and innovation. The ship first set sail on March 24, 1938, and in a period of 17 months, it completed roughly 50 voyages, transporting approximately 65,000 vacationers. It could accommodate up to 1,900 people, including about 400 staff. The rooms were all the same size and quality to reflect the socialist ideals of Nazi Germany, where no class structures existed. You couldn't simply book a ticket on this cruise. The Nazi Party chose the passengers. The vessel served other functions as well. On April 10, 1938, it operated as a polling place for Germans and Austrians living in England to vote on the annexation of Austria. In May 1939, it was used to bring soldiers of the Condor Legion back to Germany after the Spanish Civil War ended. With the onset of World War II, luxury cruises were no longer possible. The Gustloff was converted into a hospital ship, serving in the Baltic Sea and Norway. By 1940, it was stationed in Gdynia, Poland, operating as a barracks for the 2nd Submarine Training Division. The ship remained in Poland until 1945, when it embarked on its final, ill-fated voyage as part of Operation Hannibal. Operation Hannibal was the German equivalent of the evacuation of Dunkirk, except on a much larger scale. While 338,000 were evacuated from Dunkirk. Over 2 million were evacuated from East Prussia, West Prussia, and Pomerania, regions that are now part of northern Germany, Russia, and Poland. On January 30th, the Gustloff initially took on soldiers from the 2nd Submarine Training Division. Then, more and more refugees boarded -756 were officially registered, but witnesses say another 2,000 came on afterward. Just after noon, the ship left Dynia harbor. The Gustloff had been idle for some time, so Captain Friedrich Petersen sailed at a slow pace, no faster than 22 kilometers per hour, about 14 miles per hour. Ferries from Poland to Germany today travel around 33 kilometers per hour, about 20 miles per hour. This decision did not sit well with the crew. Wilhelm Zahn, commander of the 2nd Submarine Training Division, argued that the speed should be increased to 28 kilometers per hour, but he was ignored. Zahn believed that at that speed, Soviet submarines wouldn't be able to keep up. First Officer Louis Rees also suggested a route that hugged the coastline, but this was also ignored. Instead, the captain chose a deep-water route known to be clear of mines. That evening, there was a radio broadcast of what would be Adolf Hitler's last address to the people of Germany. He said, "I expect all Germans to fulfill their duty. Every sacrifice demanded must and will be made." His tone was less optimistic, and his words rang hollow to the people whose lives were now in danger because of his war. At 6 p.m., the captain received an urgent message. A minesweeper convoy was headed their way, and he needed to activate the lights to prevent a collision. However, the Gustloff never encountered any minesweepers, and none of the radio operators on board claimed to have received this message. Something strange was happening. The ship was about to find out exactly what. Turning the lights on proved fatal. An hour later, at 7 p.m., a Soviet submarine spotted the boat. The Soviet commander, Captain Alexander Marinesko, decided to move between the Gustloff and the coast, as an attack from that side was least expected. At 9:16 p.m., 3 torpedoes struck, each one more devastating than the last. The ship began sinking, a process that would take less than an hour. The sheer number of people on board meant there weren't enough lifeboats for everyone. The ship carried lifeboats for 5,000 people, just over half of those estimated to be on board. As mentioned earlier, the boat had tilted to one side, so there was no access to the lifeboats on the starboard side. Additionally, one of the torpedoes hit the crew quarters, meaning those trained to deal with the situation may have already been killed. Soon, the attack destroyed the engines, plunging the ship into complete darkness. Crew members tried to seal shut the doors from the damaged part of the hull, trapping off-duty crew members inside. The darkness and lack of crew meant many passengers were at a loss for what to do. With all these unfortunate scenarios unfolding, it's a miracle that Horst White managed to escape and live to tell the tale. Over 7,000 others were not so lucky. The aftermath of the sinking led to the Wilhelm Gustloff being largely forgotten by history. Like the Titanic, there was an inquiry, but Nazi Germany would soon be gone. Captain Friedrich Petersen survived, but died shortly after the war. Commander Zahn also survived and had to testify before a naval board of inquiry. However, Nazi Germany collapsed before authorities could decide whether Zahn was culpable for the disaster. Although the Wilhelm Gustloff was a cruise ship, it contained military equipment and personnel, so international bodies did not consider the attack a war crime. So why has this tragedy been largely forgotten? Several factors contribute to its obscurity. First, the ship sank during World War II, a time when thousands were dying across Europe. The Titanic was an isolated incident during peacetime, making it easier to remember. Furthermore, 3 other German vessels, General von Steuben, Goya, and Cap Arcona, also sank in the Baltic Sea during Operation Hannibal.